Okay, our next speaker, before we can go to lunch, is he's an author, he's a consultant, he's been optimizing content online since '96, which is his way of flexing on me by saying he was there 2 years earlier than I. Brian Pfeiffer, come on up.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I am the last thing holding you back from lunch, so try to avoid getting you hangry. I'll try to get through this quickly. So I have been optimizing content since 1996, so dial-up internet, AOL CD-ROMs, try to date myself there, but in that time, I haven't seen any tools or technology that provide the capability for us to be more efficient and more effective with our content creation and really spend our time doing the things we enjoy doing versus the things we don't like doing than AI. I track how much time I save by using AI. Last week, I did 3 months worth of work. So it's time to start figuring out how to integrate these tools into our workflows and into our processes. If you want to download the slides, you can grab them from getmyslides.info. You can use the QR code. I've co-authored and authored several books, including The Content Entrepreneur, which we did with Joe. I've got a few free copies of that to give away for questions at the end. So Ethan Mollick is an AI expert. He's a professor at Wharton, and he also just wrote the book Co-Intelligence, which is fantastic if you're interested in AI technology. It's very consumable. And he wrote this post a few weeks ago and basically said the capabilities of these tools are going to double every 5 to 14 months, which is just insane because we can already do so much with these tools, but we're just scratching the surface, and they're going to get better. And so today I'm going to talk with you about how we can start using these tools within our creation processes. But first, I want to talk about dinner. So by a show of hands, how many people in here are responsible for cooking for yourself, cooking for your families, making the dinners? All right, lots of people. So my wife and I have 6 kids between the two of us. They consume a lot of food, right? We make a lot of dinners. I'm the cook. I do all the prep work. I do all the shopping. So most of the time on Sunday nights, we'll be sitting around playing games or something, and I'll say, hey, I'm going to the store tomorrow. What does everybody want to eat for the week? What do I get? Crickets. I mean, they don't want crickets. There's no response, right? Or it's whatever, we don't care, whatever you want to cook. Not helpful. So now I've got to spend my time and my mental energy coming up with the shopping list, figuring out what we're going to cook. So when ChatGPT came out last November 2022, I thought, wow, now there's a good use case for this. So I went in, I'm like, give me 5 meals for a family of 8 that are healthy and easy to cook. And it was pretty lame meals, nothing that the kids would really want to eat, nothing that I would really want to cook. So then I start putting in more information. That's what we do with these tools. You keep feeding it more and more information. So one of the people's a pescatarian, 4 of them don't like spicy food. I prefer cooking stuff that's a little fancy or gourmet, but they don't have, adventurous palates. So I was able to get some pretty good information out of that. I was able to get some pretty good meal plans. Now, when custom GPTs came out, I thought, here's a great solution for this. How many people in here have created a custom GPT? Awesome, excellent. So you have to have the paid ChatGPT plan, super easy to create. So what you do is you basically tell it how you want to communicate with it, what you want it to do. Don't spend too much time on the create portion of it because it doesn't really listen very well to that. But you can go into the configure settings, and this is where you can put in all your information. So I tell it, all right, here's the way that I like to cook. Here's the preparation tools that I like to use. Here's what my kids like to eat. While you're at it, why don't you give me some cocktail and wine pairing so I can have a drink with dinner? And then you go through the way you want it to communicate with you. All right, first I'm going to ask you to give me some ideas, just some main course and some side dish ideas. And then I'm going to ask you to give me the recipes for the meals that I want to create. And then finally, I'm going to ask you to help me with the preparation. What can I do ahead of time so that I'm ready on the night to make it quickly? Oh, by the way, here's a map of my grocery store. Here's the order that I typically shop in. So now on Sunday nights, when I don't have to ask the kids anymore because I know they're not going to give me a good answer. So all I have to do is type in there, hey, give me some ideas for food for the week. It gives me a whole list of different ways that I can prepare different meals. And then I'm like, all right, I want to do this and this and this. Give me the recipes for that. Oh, by the way, you're multimodal. Go ahead and give me pictures of what the food's going to look like when I'm done making it. Now I want you to give me a preparation list. How far back do I have to start making stuff so on the night that I'm cooking, I can do everything in half an hour or so. And then give me the shopping list in the order so that the next day I can go to the store and just breeze through and get everything I want. Saves a ton of time every week. So when we start thinking about how to integrate these tools into our everyday lives, that's going to help us figure out better ways to integrate them into our work and into our content creation. So now I'm going to talk about different ways to integrate this into every stage of the content creation process. From initial creation and ideation through distribution and then through analysis and performance. So I've been collecting use cases, and these are just a few of the different use cases that I've been collecting ever since I've been using these tools. And we only have 30 minutes, so I'm only going to talk about a few of these today. But I work at a research university. I do a lot of consulting with other research universities. We spend a lot of time going through a lot of really heavy, in-depth content. I also am really into data and analytics and into AI, so there's a lot of content to consume. These tools are great at giving short breakdowns, giving us key takeaways, critical elements that we need to be paying attention to. I just downloaded a new Chrome extension called HARPA AI, which is in that list at getmyslides.info. And while you're watching a YouTube video, you can just say, give me the highlights, and it'll just give you, with links to the different sections in the video, it'll give you all the different highlights. You can ask it questions about specific areas of the video. It's fantastic, and that's just one of about 100 things that tool does. Research, when I get a new idea for a piece of content I want to create or something I want to write about or blog about or do a video about, the first place I start is research. Anytime I'm doing research, I use Perplexity. That's the place to start. If you're not using Perplexity, that's the one thing you should take away from this conference, is to start using that. It's basically replaced Google for me. The things I like about Perplexity is it actually goes out and it does a live search on the internet. And it gives you back a conversational answer, generative answer for your query. And it cites the sources so that you can immediately click on them and go validate them and verify them. So that's what I use to do initial research, to get any metrics, any statistics around the particular area that I'm trying to gather information on. And then I go to all the other generative tools. And usually I'll end up opening 4 different windows and using 4 different tools at the same time. So currently I'm using ChatGPT, Claude, Hyperwrite, and Gemini, because they're going to give you different answers, and these tools are constantly updating and changing the way that they deliver the output to you. So incredibly helpful to be able to look and compare and figure out which tool is right for what you're trying to do. So now we've got a good idea, we've got a good concept, we've got some ideas about what we want to write. Now comes to the heart of content marketing, of creating content. You need to know who you're talking to, right? Personas are a great way to figure out who your audience is. Personas are time-consuming to create. You have to go out and you have to interview people, you have to ask questions, you have to talk to them, you have to figure out qualitative and quantitative data, what their pain points are, then you have to aggregate that all together, make it into these pretty, elements that you can use, that you can hand out to your team so everybody's talking to the same person. With the right prompts, these AI tools can make pretty good personas. Now, they shouldn't replace these, highly crafted, legitimate personas from audience data. But you can take these personas and like I said, with the right prompts, now there's lots of different ways to prompt these tools. The structure that I like to use is Christopher Penn's race model. So you give it a role, you give it an action, you give it context, so you give it extra data around what you're going to ask it, and then you tell it to execute the prompt. There's a link to this also in the notes. So it's a great model to start with. So you need a prompt, and then you need data to feed into that. So at the university, most public institutions, they have these open data sets, which is all sorts of information about your student body and how it's what it's comprised of. So you can take that information, and you want to make sure you could also get something like this from your CRM, but you want to make sure any data you're putting into these open models doesn't have any personal information, doesn't have any health information, doesn't have any IP, right? So make sure you're putting in public data that doesn't have anything that you don't want in there. And then you prompt it. You put the data into ChatGPT, you say, you are a content marketer, expert, you understand audiences and targeted marketing. I'm going to ask you to create a persona for a potential undergraduate student for this university. Throw in the URL. Then you give it the data set. I want you to pull from this. I want you to use our strategic plan so that you make sure that the student is aligned with our goals. Look at our about page. As much information as you can put into the system, you want to add that in. And then you say, create the persona. Take your time. So I always ask the model to take your time because it's been shown that it actually gives you better feedback, better output if it has longer to process and it's not trying to rush through it. And I always say please, because when the robot overlords take over, I want them to remember that I was at least polite to them. Unless they go far enough back to look at the way I talked to Alexa when she was giving me really bad answers. But it puts out a pretty good usable base model persona. Then you go back and you ask it all those questions that you would ask a persona if you were doing a real one. Like, what are your priority initiatives? What looks like success for you? What are your roadblocks? What are your decision criteria? What's your content flow through our user journey? It will answer all of those questions for you. And then, of course, they're multimodal, so you can say, all right, now give me a headshot of what the persona looks like. So, great, you've got this persona, you've got all this information. Now what do? Now you put it into a custom GPT. So now we made Pat the potential undergraduate student. And we take all of this data and we dump it into that configure settings. Now if you have legitimate personas that you've created from actual user data, just put that into a custom GPT, build that model out, and now what you can do is you can ask it questions. What do you think of this admissions page? What information on it do you like? What else should be included on this page to help you with your decision? Is the language easy to understand? Is it laid out the way that you want it to be laid out? Is the reading level where you want it to be? We use this on our admissions page for international students. It had some fantastic recommendations about how to remove different jargon, how to make sure it was very bulletized, shorten down the copy. Excellent input. And then you can do competitive analysis. You can say, look at MIT's admissions page. Tell me what's on their page that you like that's not on our page. You can use these tools to create personas for potential employers who you're going to interview with, potential clients who you're going to pitch, and you can have it play a role back and forth where conversationally it can review the data that the pitch material that you're going to present. Excellent for these. You can also then ask it, all right, as a potential undergraduate student, where else are you going to go to find this information? How else are you going to search? And now we get into the distribution phase. Because distribution equals discovery these days, right? We need to put our content out onto all the places where our users are searching, especially if you're targeting Gen Z or Gen Alpha, because they're not just searching on Google anymore. You heard Mike talk about it. There's still a lot of primarily most of the search is still on Google, but that's changing, that's shifting. I talk to my kids and they're searching on voice, they're searching through AI, they're searching on social, they're searching in communities. The only way to get found in those spaces is to have your content in those places. What does Joe always say? One channel. Pick one channel where you can be the best. And we still say that. But these AI tools can help you redistribute your content to all sorts of different channels without a lot of extra work. That's what they're doing at the Marketing AI Institute, is they are doing their podcast, video content, because it's the most repurposable content, and then they're taking one piece of content every week, original piece of content, and they're spreading that out over multiple channels, dozens of different pieces of content. Lots of different tools that can help you do this. Jordash had a great presentation on different tools. ChatGPT, obviously, if you're doing text tools, you're converting a transcript into different types of content. ChatGPT is great for that. Midjourney and DALL-E, text-to-image generators. DALL-E's built into ChatGPT. Remember, when you're creating images, that you cannot copyright or own AI-generated images at this point. And there's still a lot of up in the air about how these models were trained and where they got their sources. And so ownership is a difficult thing to figure out at this point. So be careful if you're using those commercially. But there's lots of other ways you can use these for ideation, for brainstorming, for use in presentations. Descript and Capsho are fantastic tools for audio and video editing. Capsho is doing all sorts of, they're launching a new version, they're doing a summit, lots of stuff going on in that space. Amazing things you can do with these tools. You can heal audio, so if you record something and the sound gets lost, a bus drives by during an interview, or wind noise cuts out something, you can train the model on a section of clean video, and then you can just type in what the person is saying, and it will fill in that video or audio with what they're saying. It'll match it to their voice or to their mouth movements. You can force eye contact, so someone can read off a transcript and it'll look like they're looking at the camera. You can remove filler words from presentations quickly. Gloss AI and Opus Clips are great ways to repurpose video content. So you have long-form video content, you can take that and you can dynamically and automatically, it will go through and it will pull out the key pieces of the key elements from that content, and it will make shorter versions of that for social posting. It'll automatically put the captions on it. Incredible time savers. Runway is a text-to-video tool. We're going to see a lot more of this, especially through the end of this year. We're going to see all sorts of new text-to-video tools being launched. You're going to need some B-roll for something. It's going to be easy to just go in and just tell it exactly what you're looking for. And then HeyGen, we saw Drew Deeney was created by HeyGen. What if you do courses, online courses? Let's say you do an online course on AI, and AI is changing so quickly, you don't want to go back and reshoot and re-edit video every couple of weeks when something changes. You just train the avatar on your video, and then you can just go in and change the transcript, and it will automatically sync that up in your voice with your mouth movements. And I know you saw this with Drew Deeney. I just wanted to showcase how easy this is. You throw up a short video clip, and then you speak German, and you speak Spanish, and you speak Korean. It takes about 5 minutes for it to spit these out. And the timing of the voice to the lip movements is incredible. And I don't speak any of those languages, but I love watching myself speak Korean. It's very cool. So you can do a lot to distribute your content using these tools. Now let's talk about my favorite section of this, which is analyzing your content performance and figuring out how to make your content better. So Google Search Console is one of my favorite tools from an SEO perspective. It's a free tool. If you have Google Analytics, you can just sign up and get a Google Search Console account. It'll show you all sorts of stuff, what queries people are using on Google to find you, and then how many times they're clicking on your site, all sorts of great information. The problem with Google Search Console is it's hard to get data out of it. It doesn't show you the data in a format that's super helpful for you. You have to go to one place to get one chunk of data and another place to get another chunk. So what I do is I always take my Google Search Console data and I throw it into Looker Data Studio. So this dashboard template is also at the getmyslides.info. And all you have to do is point it at your Google Search Console account, and it will dynamically fill in. So it'll tell you what keywords people are searching on, what pages they're landing on, how many times they're searching on that page or on that phrase, how many times they're clicking on your page, and then where you rank for that keyword. So that's what you pay for with a lot of these SEO tools, and you can get it for free using Google Search Console and Looker Data Studio. And then the great thing is, it also gives you all the data. So the Google Search Console will only give you about the first couple thousand pages. In Looker, this has 200,000 entries almost. And then you just right-click it, you say export, you export that as a CSV file, and then what do? Yeah, ChatGPT, that's right. So you paste it into ChatGPT, you say, you're a content marketing expert, I want you to look at all this data and consume it, here's my website, here's my target audience, give me 20 content ideas out of that. And it'll give you 20 pretty good content ideas. So then what do? You say, hey, potential Pat, my undergraduate student, which of these content ideas do you like? And Pat will say, I like these 5 content ideas. So all of a sudden, you've taken all of this data, 200,000 rows of data, you've figured out which are most strategically aligned to you, which are most important for your audience, and you validated with a persona, a custom GPT persona, which content might be the most high-performing and cause the highest number of conversions. So quickly. You save so much time doing that. Another incredible time-saving tip that we use all the time is any survey data that you have, or we did this with interviews. It aggregates concepts very well. So we had one of our marketing teams, it did interviews with the department that they were working with. So they interviewed all the deans and the faculty. They had 10 90-minute interviews that they had done, asking how they could work with them better. What are the main problems they have that they're trying to solve? What are their goals? And then they got all done with that, and they came to me and they said, we can't remember everything that they said in all of these interviews. Can AI help with this? You bet, absolutely. So Otter AI, we took all the audio files, we transcribed them all, and then one by one, we took them into ChatGPT and said, look through this, come up with like all the common topics, put them in order, and we just did that with one file after another because it wouldn't take all 10 at the same time because it was over the limit of it. But then we were able to say, now take all 10 of those individual interviews, summarize all of them, give us the top 10 takeaways from it, and it did a fantastic job. The person that did the interviews went back and looked at the final output and was like, yeah, that seems right. And so then we took it a step further and we said, all right, now give us 10 to 15 different actions that we could take that would help alleviate these problems for this team. And it did, it gave us 15. And 13 of them were horrible. They were unusable. They weren't anything that we could actually execute on. But 2 of them were good. And then you know what we did? We asked for 20 more. And the power of these tools to continually iterate and export more and more opportunities for you is unbelievable. That's all I've got. Thank you very much for your time. I'm glad to answer any questions that anybody has.
Do we have any questions? Right here.
Great presentation, Brian. Thank you. I wanted to know, are there any tools that can do illustrated books? Because in a book that is illustrated, the character has to be in the same character has to appear in the different formats?
All right, you're talking about doing the same thing with books, was that correct?
Yes, but illustrated books for kids.
Oh, books for kids?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things I've done is I've created a custom GPT, and I call it the Content Marketing Professor. So I uploaded my first book, Epic Content Marketing, into the GPT, and so now I can just go back and ask it questions. And you could actually now, you can create and tag multiple GPTs within one query. So I can say, all right, I'm gonna have my student that I've created, my child that I have created a GPT persona of look at the book that I've created in my other GPT and figure out what are the most interesting things, what are the most interesting tasks that this book has in it for this particular audience member. So yeah, absolutely.
I think he's asking about illustrations, though. Is there one of the graphic generative programs that can change a character into different poses? I think that's what
Yes.
he's saying.
Yes.
So like, in an illustrated children's book, you're going to have a character in multiple pages in different poses and whatnot.
Yes, excellent question, and thank you, Brian. Yeah, so Midjourney, there is actually a style element that you could use, or there's a character element that you could use so that you can set a specific character to persist over multiple images. So you could generate multiple images using the same character. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Have you got the Content Entrepreneur yet? You get a free copy. There you go.
Hi, I would like to ask a question about, we switched over from having the plugins. Remember, you could have 3 plugins in ChatGPT now. They have eliminated that. So one of the challenges that I have sort of experienced is, well, what if I wanted to, like let's say I'm using one of the GPTs, right? And I wanted to switch to another GPT right in that thread without having to copy and go to another one. Let's say I wanted to use WebPilot, right? And I needed to engage WebPilot in the current thread I'm in. How are you doing that? I know that you can put the ampersand sign and maybe it will pop up, but it's not always popping up. And do you have any tricks on how to do this really effectively? Yeah,
so a lot of times you'll end up, anytime that I know I'm going to be using multiple GPTs or multiple plugins, sometimes you just have to try it in multiple queries. So I'll create my prompt. Usually I'll create my prompt in like Notepad or Word or an Excel file so that I have it as a backup, and then I'll copy and paste it in, and if it doesn't work within that first prompt, sometimes you just have to refresh and try it in a new prompt. And I don't know why, the tools are still like always constantly under development and being worked on, so things change fairly frequently within the actual applications in the tool. So I don't have a definitive answer. I don't know if anyone else has used multiple plugins, multiple GPTs within a query and had a way that kind of creates consistency for usage. Yeah. It's a quirk of the tool, yes, absolutely. You want a book? Sure. Absolutely, come on up and grab it.
Brian, what was the RACE framework again
for
prompt writing?
Yep, and that's at getmyslides.info. It's role, you give it a role, you tell it what action you're going to ask it to do, you give it context around that, and then you ask it to execute. So you're setting it up so that by the time it gets to the point where it's going to actually execute the action, it understands the complete problem that you're asking it to solve.
Got it.
Just some of the tools that recreate your voice. As a podcaster, I have many episodes where I've interviewed C-suite executives. The notion that those could be translated and they could copy my voice as well as perhaps the executive I spoke with and do an Italian version and a French version and a Chinese version of those interviews. There are a lot of legal and ethical reasons why that might not be able to execute. Am I correct, or what are the possibilities there?
Yes, you are absolutely correct. And one of the things I always say when you're using any of these tools, be transparent, especially if you're using these for client work. Tell them what tools you're using and how you're using them. Any publicly facing content that I put out or any of the institutions that I consult with put out, I tell them if you are using generative AI, other than for just like editing or minor changes, if you're using it to generate content, you need to be transparent about that with your audience. Absolutely. Because there are all sorts of legal issues. And one of the things about these models, welcome to a book if you want it. One of these things about these models is that a lot of them you can go in and train it on your digital persona, but we don't really know exactly what the terms and conditions are about how they can use those personas. So you got to go in and look at their policies before you actually start training yourself and putting, and we got a lot of content out there, but you have limited copyright over that content generically when you're first putting it out there, but once you drop it into these tools and upload it to these tools, there's a lot of fuzzy boundaries around ownership of that.
So
Yep.
I can actually give some, so we're a company that does stuff like that, and we use voiceover agreements for each and every one of the people that we work with, specifically to deal with those legal constraints and issues, and so be happy to share our voiceover agreement if you wanted to take a look at it for your, podcast interviewees and stuff like that, so you can see how it works.
Awesome. I got maybe time for one more?
One more.
One
yeah.
more.
What's the easiest AI that you use for generating captions for videos? So, and is there any AI that would give you choices as far as, where they show up on the page and,
So are you generating, generating
like my
captions?
podcast right now is audio only, but I'd like it to go video. And so right now I'm using Descript, which goes to Cast Magic, and both of those will give me the notes page and the good audio, but it does not give me, if I was going to make it a video, it doesn't give me the
transcript.
the captions.
The captions for the video.
transcriptions.
Yeah, we've used the native captioning tools within a lot of the platforms. I don't know, does CapShow do video captions? Descript, yeah.
Descript does that? Okay, all right. You know what? It's like I use it, and I'm being here. I'm learning that there's. I didn't know that. So okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you,
All right.
everybody.